Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and my name is Mary for those that don't know me. Welcome. Make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, as I'm gonna try to be uploading videos. This whole week I didn't get to upload any videos just because I was really busy with stuff, and I did upload I did record one. It was a leg workout, and if you know, as a YouTuber, you know the pain of deleting a video by accident after, recording, re-recording. I was just like, I'm done. So I'm gonna go ahead and upload that one. Hopefully sometime this week. I have to re-record the whole thing. So I do apologize for not uploading anything recently. I know my last video was maybe like over a week ago or so, but here we are. I am gonna go just step by step on what I did to pass my NASM CPT test. It took me about 2 weeks. I did have like a list of how I was gonna go over everything, but I completely lost that thing. Like Mercury retrograde. Can you please just take it easy on me? Because I feel like I've been all over the place. But anyways, I got my certification. I passed at the end of May. And oh my God, I couldn't be any more proud of myself, because I remember the first time I opened this book, I was like, no way, there is no way I'm gonna memorize this whole book and pass the test. Like, there was no way. But fortunately, I do have a background of working in the veterinary field for about 11 years, so that kind of made it a lot easier for me to understand some of the things that they were talking on the book. But other than that, I think it's pretty overwhelming and intimidating as well. So all I want to tell you guys right now is that please, I know the book is really thick and it's like over 600 pages, but just to give you peace of mind, the test isn't as difficult as it seems. I legit was stressing out, and now that I think of it, I'm like, whoa, like I studied so much, but I mean, that's why I passed it. But I studied so much that I think I overstudied for the type of test that they give you, sorry. As we know, it's 120 questions. They give you about 2 hours to finish the test. Due to the pandemic, I had to do it online, which was amazing because I'm not a good test taker. I suck at test taking. I get nervous. I'm a complete wreck. I did take it at home with Proctor. I know a lot of people are going to be able to do it like that because I know the places are not open. It depends on the state that you're located. Here in California, I had my appointment, then I had to reschedule it and do it online. And I took it at 1 in the morning, I remember. And you always want to make sure that your settings are okay on your computer, because I think they give you like a 15-minute window, and if you're not ready by that time, they will cancel your exam, and then you have to reschedule and hopefully not even pay, because I have seen that people were paying again just because their pop-ups were blocked or whatever the case is. The proctor will take over the computer. They will ask you to show the whole room around. They want to see that you put your phone as far as possible. They don't let you speak, make any type of noise, and they are watching you throughout the whole time that you're taking the test. So they pretty much take control of your laptop, your computer, or whatever you're using. But yeah, so it's 120 questions, about 2 hours. I finished my exam in 1 hour, and I was like, the first 10 questions, I was reading them so fast that I was like, oh my God, this is hard. This is really hard. But in reality, if you just calm down as you're taking the exam and you pay attention to the words, I guarantee you're going to be okay. Just let go of the anxiety that you get before taking a test, because a lot of the questions I got repeated more than once. So they will use certain words on one question and then ask you again the same question, but worded differently. So pay attention to that. I always do multiple choice, so it's like I believe they give you four options, and then you start to just cancel out whatever doesn't make any sense. And a lot of these questions were literally common sense. Like, you have to have common sense. And at the end of the exam, I was like, that's it? Like, literally, that's it? I know Show Up Fitness, I started to watch the videos too. He was like, this is really easy. Because if you think about it, they're only going to pull 120 questions from the book, and 20 of them are research questions, which I honestly I can't even think which ones were research questions, because I think most of the research questions were like the common sense ones where oh, so if somebody's like squatting, you're queuing, how would you tell them how to squat properly? I think that's how you say the word, queuing. So then you would play it in your mind as you have your client in front of you, and you're gonna go ahead and give them the direction or teach them how to do the proper posture for a squat, and it'll give you like different options on what to pick. And it's obvious, like one would say like a feet turning outward. Obviously that's not it. So questions like that, like that's how dumb they were. Other than that, I want to let you guys know what sources I used. I know there's Pocket Prep, Fitness Mentors with Eddie Lester, what else? Show Up Fitness and NASM, and I don't know these other things. But me personally, I paid for the Pocket Prep, and it was about, I think it was free for the first 200, 300 questions. And then they give you another option where you pay a little bit more. You upgrade that plan, and then they give you a lot more questions. I paid for the big bunch, the whole bundle, where they give you like 800 questions, I believe it was. Sorry, it's just been so long because I took it in March. So I paid for that, and I didn't even use it. Like the questions there were very difficult, like difficult. I was like, there's no way I'm gonna pass this test. So I stopped using that. I was like, okay, so obviously this doesn't work for me. You have to figure out what works for you, especially when it comes to studying. Like that didn't work for me. I'm more of a visual person and a listener. So if I read my book, I have to reread it a couple times in order for me to understand it. So I went ahead and got Fitness Mentor, which is $99. It is amazing because Eddie Lester goes through every chapter and he gives you a lecture, and he'll tell you what's going to be on the exam. So that's complete. That thing, honestly, that helped me a lot because I would play it when I was showering, in the car, when I was running, at all times, and I would replay it and then go through every chapter and listen. And some of the questions that he would say in that chapter, in that audio, they were on the exam. I want to say I probably got like 6 questions that he said, okay, this is going to be on the exam, especially when it came to stability balls, and he was right on the point. I also used an NASM YouTube podcasts. Well, yeah, the podcast on YouTube with Richard. I used those, and those were amazing. Like there's not a lot of them, but I would recommend you listening to them because he kind of dumbs it down. Like especially when it comes to the overactive and the underactive muscles, he kind of dumbs it down on. He explains to you like, oh, think of it like this, or this way or that way. I would listen to it when I would be running, and he would be talking about the overactive, underactive muscles for certain distortion patterns. So then I'll be running, and then I will kind of react what he would be talking about and try to feel with my own body. And then I start to understand, like, oh, it starts to make sense. But let me tell you this, one thing that you have to do is read the whole book. I know there's people saying, okay, focus on this chapter, this chapter, this chapter, this chapter. Yes, there's certain chapters that you do have to focus on, and I will go over those as well. But I truly recommend, like, there's no point of you paying all this money and you're not going to read the whole book. Read every book, and I promise you, once you're reading chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as you're getting deeper into your book, everything starts to make sense. Like, it starts to fall into place. Everything starts to make sense. And it would be easier for you to understand it as well, especially when you're taking your exam. Another thing that I did use and I bought was this book from Amazon. It's called the NASM Certified Personal Trainer Exam Prep. I bought it, and it's divided into 6 domains, and it'll tell you everything that's in the exam, on the exam. And was it worth it? No. I didn't really use it, to be honest with you, because we do have this available on the website. Is your CPT study guide, and I printed it out. It's about 50 pages, I believe. Yeah, 50 pages. This is literally what you need to study over and over and over again, because it literally pulls everything out of the book that's going to be on the test and puts it into this bunch. So think of it, 600 pages. Crumbled it, shrunk into 50 pages. So I would totally recommend this. I mean, it can be a little overwhelming, but once you start to understand everything, try not to be the person that just memorizes this to just take the exam, because it's literally not gonna, by the time you're done, you're not gonna know anything. So I would recommend you actually reading the book, understanding it, taking your time. It took me about 2 weeks, but I did put a lot of hours into studying. So I was studying maybe 6 to 8 hours a day, and I have 2 kids, and I have midterms, and I had finals, and I took the precision nutrition course as well. I had to retake my test, so I had all that done within a week. So trust me, I'm like the worst at test taking, so you will be okay. Another book that I do recommend is this one, anatomy book. This one literally breaks down all the muscles. So I know the NASM doesn't really have that, but literally it'll break down all the muscles, and it'll give you the active muscles of a workout. So for example, the Superman here, the deadlift, it'll tell you what muscles it works. And if you're listening to the podcast as you're studying and you're writing down on this, like if you're writing down the muscles and how he talks about the overactive and the underactive muscles, it'll become a piece of cake, because now you're visualizing something with the muscles rather than the NASM book doesn't have that. So that's why I went in. I was like, you know what? I need to see the muscles, because I mean, I could do it on somebody, practice on somebody, but I needed to see, so that way I could visualize in my head, how does it work when something's overactive and something's underactive. Okay, so then I do recommend this one. Let me see. I am not one to do study cards or flashcards. I know a lot of people are very good at that. Since I'm so visual, I made posters. And if you are interested in a picture or a copy of these posters, I am more than happy to share these with you guys. I posted these on the NASM group on Facebook, and a lot of people were requesting for pictures. So what I did was, whatever I felt like I needed help with, or I was having trouble understanding, or I knew was going to be really important on the test, I drew it out in a poster, and then I hung it on my wall by my bed. So every time I would walk in, or I would just lay down, it was just like a lazy day, I would just sit there, I would just lay there and just read it over and over and over again. So this is a fitness assessment. This is chapter 6. So this one was very important. Chapter 6 is very, very important, because they're going to for sure ask you about subjective and objective information, the PARQ, plantar flex, dorsiflex, the kinetic checkpoints. That's always going to be on the test. Like I've heard it and I've seen it many times. The kinetic checkpoints is going to be knees, shoulders, heads, and toes. So always think of the song, knees, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Okay, so I put that there. They have the training zone method, the straight percentage method, sorry. And then the training zones, they're going to have 1, 2, 3. And I think as far as that, they're going to ask you about the YMCA, the 3-minute step up, so 96 steps per minute. And then you have to wait 5 seconds and then check the client's heart rate and then multiply that by 60 seconds. So I hung this one up. They're going to ask you about the medications as well. What do they do to the heart rate and the blood pressure? Is it going to stay normal? Is it going to elevate the heart rate or the blood pressure? Or like whatever medications the client's on. You need to know that as well, because depending on that, there's certain workouts that you do want to avoid if they are taking certain medications. And then this one was one that was really requested as well. This is your distortion patterns. They are they're like the queen of this. They're gonna ask you so many questions on this, like pronation distortion. That's your flat feet, inward knees, lower cross syndrome, the upper cross syndrome. I always thought like short muscles being the overactive, like the little ones, and then the lengthened muscles being the underactive. So the underactive muscles, you do have the strength, and then the short, which is your overactive, because they're really tight, you would stretch and foam roll SMR for 30 seconds. That question for sure is gonna be there, like no doubt. Your pronation distortion, so right here, I don't know if you guys can see, I wrote my overactive, my underactive, and then a picture of what it would look like on a client. Okay, so then you have your lower cross syndrome, your upper cross syndrome, your overhead squat, all this, you have to know it. It's going to be on the exam. I probably had maybe 30% of the questions were on this. And then once you start to actually read it and start to pay attention to the overactive and the underactive muscles, there's a pattern. I don't even know how to explain it, but there's a pattern as how they all the overactives will do the same thing for most of the syndromes, the distortion patterns. Your single leg squat, that's going to be another question. Your overactive and your underactive as well. And your checkpoint and your compensation, so we'll be moving inwards. I also have the cardiorespiratory system. I drew the heart, and I know they're not really so much into the chapter 3. They're not going to really ask you any questions. I probably had one, but I still wanted to know how the heart pumped. I did know from years ago because I've worked with animals for so long. So I wrote here how the heart pumps, just in steps. Other than that, they are going to ask you about the stroke volume. I think that was one of the questions that I had. Other than that, I think that was the only question that I had. They didn't really get into this one, honestly. They didn't really get into this one. The other one I have is the OPT model. Oh, you have to know this. You have to know your acute variables and the stages. So like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. In phase 5, they're going to ask you literally so many questions on this chapter. This is chapter 14. They will literally test you, like that's their foundation. So they're going to ask you everything from this chapter. So I would recommend you chapter 6, chapter 14, go through it, read it 1, twice, 3 times. They're going to ask you the acute variables. What is a rep, a set, training volume, training frequency, training duration, exercise selection. Not so much on the amino acids or like the nutrition. The nutrition part, I probably only had like 2 questions on that. But they will ask you like for example, max strength, how many reps do they recommend? How many sets, the intensity, the tempo. Millions of questions on that. Your rest periods, how long does it take for the ATP to reload? So for example, the 20-30 seconds, 50% of the ATP. But if you think about it, the longer it takes for the ATP to reload, the more ATP you're loading. So 20-30 seconds, if 50%, if you go down to 3 to 5 minutes, you're getting 100% of reload of the ATP. So then I would memorize that. They're going to ask you for periodization of the OPT model. So like your annual, your monthly, and your weekly. So think of it as weekly being the small, so microcycle. Monthly being your second largest, that would be your mesocycle. And then your macrocycle would be the largest one. I think of that as like that cell that eats everything, so it's bigger. So it takes, so macrocycle. They're going to ask you definition of aerobic and anaerobic. Your blood pressure for sure is going to be there. I got that one. And then how to calculate max heart rate. So it's 220 minus the age, and that's the max heart rate. So now I'm going to go over the chapters that are really important. So I would go through chapter 5. So that is your human science movement. The planes of motions are going to be on the exam for sure. Memorize them, that way when you're, like say you get a job interview, I mean it's not that hard to understand or to even memorize. Just work it with your own body. So chapter 6, chapter 5, chapter 6 for sure. Let me see, chapter 6, they're not going to do so much of chapter 8. They're chapter 7, so you have to learn your stretches, how to fix your underactive and overactive muscles. That one's going to be there for sure. Flexibility, your muscle imbalances. So you want to learn your muscle imbalances. So ultra-reciprocal inhibition, synergist dominance, and arthrokinetic dysfunction. Those are going to be in the exam. They're going to ask you what is a Golgi tendon organ. So corrective flexibility, active flexibility, and functional flexibility is going to be on the exam as well. I got all of those questions for those three. They're going to ask you for your stretching technique, so your myofascial and your static stretching. So your myofascial release, that one's the 30-second. You hold for 30 seconds and then you release the stretch. And then I promise you, it's not chapter 9. I didn't really get a lot of questions on chapter 9, which is your core training concepts. I didn't get any of those questions there. There's one chapter that a lot of people didn't mention on the video. There was only one person that I did see that did mention it, and I had a ton of questions on that one, and I was like, wait, nobody had mentioned this chapter. And you would think is the least important chapter on the book. And I'm like, okay, what's the point of this? Like, you're supposed to be learning how to create programs. Chapter 10, yes. You have to read chapter 10. Chapter 10 for sure. So that one's balance training. So how to progress through your balance training. Chapter 11, I didn't really get a lot of questions on that chapter. There's a plyometric chapter. Chapter 12, the speed, agility, and quickness. They're not going to ask you any questions on that one just because they do have another course, and I'm sure they want you to buy that one. So if they have a course available for you to purchase, they're not going to really question you or give you a lot of information on the book, just because if you're interested on that, they're going to make you want to, they're going to have you purchase that other course. So they're pretty smart when it comes to this. Chapter 13, it's a must. So general adaptation syndrome, I got questions on that. Alarm reaction stage, the SAID principle, the exhaustion stage. So chapter 13, yes, chapter 13, I got a lot of questions. Stabilization, muscle endurance, hypertrophy. Let me see. Okay, and then also I got questions on the single set, the multiple set, the pyramid system, and the superset system. They have questions on those two. It's not always going to be on every single one, but they're going to question you on either or. They're going to give you an example of a workout, and they're going to ask you, where does this belong? And then they'll give you the options, and then from there you choose. Your drop sets, circuit training, all chapter 13, I would read. I wouldn't even skip that chapter, honestly. Chapter 14, that one I would recommend you reading at maybe, I wouldn't say at least 4. If you're new to this, I would recommend you reading at least 4 times. And if you want a copy of my poster, go ahead and let me know, and then I'll go ahead and make a copy of that as well. But chapter 14 is like literally the foundation of the exam. Everything on the exam is probably pulled from chapter 14 and then put into the questions. But don't panic, because remember, there's 120 questions. 20 questions are just research questions, and 100 are coming out of the book. Out of a 600-page book. Think about it like that. Like, there's and then most of them are some of the questions are repeated, like, but just worded differently. So chapter 14, chapter 15, there was not a lot on chapter 15 on my exam. Chapter 16, I would read chapter 16, which is chronic health conditions and physical. Just because there's a lot of good information in there that you would want to know. I don't think I got any questions off of chapter 16. Most of them were chapter 13 and 14 and 15. Yeah, 13, 14, and 15. And I read those maybe about 3 or 4 times. So my studying was maybe about 6 to 8 hours a day. And then chapter 17, which is nutrition, they're not really going to ask you a lot. Maybe they'll ask you like what recommendation for protein per person based on their weight, like per kilogram per pound, or carbs. I got 2 or 3 questions on that. It was no big deal. I wouldn't like focus on that chapter too much. Chapter 19. Chapter 19. This is a chapter. Chapter 19. The lifestyle modification and behavioral coaching, I got a lot of questions out of this. Probably it was chapter 13, 14, 15, and chapter 19. I don't know why. I thought I was gonna, because from all the other videos that I was watching, I was focusing on other ones, and then I found this one video that said chapter 19. That one, they're gonna get a lot of questions out of there. And I think Chris from from Show Up Fitness had mentioned chapter 19 was on there too, and it sure was. It sure was. Another thing that I would recommend, chapter 19 and then chapter 20. Chapter 20 as well. They're gonna ask you a lot of questions on chapter 20, or maybe it was just my luck, but I had a lot of questions on that. And honestly, those are the chapters that I really did struggle with because I was not familiar with any of that. When you want to start as a personal training, your education, your CE credits, where to work, if you're an independent contractor, insurance, owning a facility, stuff like that. I had maybe like good six questions on just that one chapter. Another thing that I do recommend is reading. Just going through your website and going through each chapter. At the end of each chapter, they're going to summarize in a small video what the chapter was about, and it makes it a lot easier. If you really don't understand per chapter, you just don't want to read it, I would do that. And then at the very end, if you scroll down, there's going to be the domains. There's going to be divided into 6 parts of what's going to be on the exam. Go through every single domain. Do not skip the domains. There's practice tests at the end. I cannot stress when people ask me, what do you do to study? Take those practice tests over and over and over again until you get 100%. I want to tell you, 70-80% of those questions that I had on my exam came out of the practice test. I asked somebody else, they said most of the questions didn't come out from there, but I literally pulled them out. I found the practice test so towards the end, closer to the testing day, and I took them until I was getting 100%, 90%, 100%, or 90%. If you don't understand the questions, go down to your book, go through your book, try to read down that chapter and try to understand it. That way, when you take your test, it just seems so natural and it's so easy rather than just breaking your head. Those practice tests, oh my God, take them. I know they tell you do not study before your exam. I studied till the last minute that I had to clock in and get into the system and be with the proctor. I know people say it's not good for you to do that because then you're gonna forget, but my mind was so fresh. And I also was going through the study guide, taking the practice test, study guide, practice test, and I passed. I took the test within an hour and I passed those practice tests. I cannot stress it. So I studied all this in 2 weeks. I'm not saying everybody is gonna pass it like that, and I'm not promising you anything, but I'm giving you the tips of what I did. I listened to the podcast over and over again. Fitness mentors. I know it's $99 and it's right now, especially during the pandemic, it's a lot of money. It's gonna be worth it because you don't want to pay $250 or whatever they charge you to retake your exam. So think of it as an investment. Took that, I bought that. I Show Up Fitness with Chris, certain syndromes and how they affect, how the muscles work against each other with each other. So I would recommend you listening to his stuff. I know he does talk a lot about smack about NASM, but it's fine. As long as you're getting your stuff through and learning it, listen to him. He is 100% correct. This exam is not hard. Reading your book, understanding it. If you have a kid, if you have somebody at home, practice with them. Have them, do the rounded shoulders and then try to figure out what muscles are overactive and underactive. Pronation, distortion, they'll have them do the single leg squat. Once you have somebody visual and you're working on that person, or even if you're looking at the anatomy book, it makes a huge difference. And I'm the type of person that I cannot retain any information. Like I have to do it over and over and over again. If you have all the time, and I believe they give you 6 months to practice on your exam, take your time and read it, especially if you're new. Don't get overwhelmed. You got this. Like seriously, I cannot. I'm like, man, I should have taken this exam a long time ago. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. And if you want copies of the posters, I'm more than happy. I'll email you a picture, and you go somewhere and they could blow it up and then just print it and post it on your wall and just study it over and over again. Make sure you read your whole book. I don't think I skipped any chapters. Just make sure. I didn't get a lot of questions on chapter 2. Literally no questions at all. Chapter 3, no questions. chapter the first chapter, no questions. Literally, no questions at all. It was just a little. So I had chapter 13, 14, 6, 7, 8, 19, and 20. And if it's your first time taking the test, make sure you have your CPR card, because they will ask you for that as well. I know a lot of people cannot get the actual card. They took just the paper. I got the email card, so I just showed them a picture. They went ahead and confirmed it, and that was it. They didn't give me a problem. They didn't ask me any questions. It has to be the CPR AED as well. Make sure you always, and you'll also stay on top of your CE credits if you need to. I think within the 2 years or so. I have not used my certification. I haven't gone to the gym or anything like that to try to apply for a job, just because the pandemic has completely like screwed a lot of people over, and unfortunately we're going through rough times, and we're praying, you know, this is over soon. But once we could get through this together, then I'll start applying at gyms, and that way I could get more experience hands-on and understand things more clearly, rather than just go based on the book, because, you know, out there in the real world it's a little different. But other than that, hopefully you guys like this video. I probably talked a lot, or I didn't give you guys clear information. I tried my best. I'm just giving you guys the tips and tricks of what I did to study, to how I studied to pass the exam. And I mean, it was draining. I didn't sleep for a couple of days, because like closer to the exam, I didn't sleep, because I was just like focused with headphones on and just listening to Richard and Eddie and Chris, and I was just like having them regurgitate everything over and over again. And when I saw that passed, I knew it was worth it. So I know you guys got this. Don't be scared. Take your exams, study, make sure you eat, make sure you sleep. And I wish you guys nothing but the best. Good luck, positive vibes. I know you guys will do freaking amazing, and you guys will pass it. But trust me, it's not that hard. I don't even know why they say it's a very difficult test. It's not difficult. It's not difficult at all. So other than that, hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I tried. If you don't, it's okay. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and I will be posting workout videos if you guys want to follow my weight loss journey, which in fact, I have been using their OPT model to create my own like workout, and it's working, and it's so easy, and it's so good. Like, because I know a lot of people like to do different workouts each day, like completely organized, and NASM But go ahead and subscribe. Give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave the questions below. I know I didn't really go into detail what's on the exam, but I'm giving you the tips of how you could possibly pass your exam, which is more important, because I don't want to like break everything down that's in the book. I'm giving you the chapters to study, how you could study, and the options that you could use to study. For example, your podcast, your YouTube, Chris, NASM, Fitness Mentor, this anatomy book, your study guide. Everything that's on the exam is on the study guide. Okay? Take your practice test, check your domains, study, relax, and don't overstress it. Don't get overwhelmed, because it will be okay. I promise you, you will pass. So I'm going to go ahead and send you guys positive vibes, and I hope you guys pass, because it feels so amazing to have a certification. Other than that, I hope you guys have a good day. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment below. I will leave my email on my description. That way you guys could ask me questions, or if you guys want pictures of the posters that I created, more than happy, go ahead and email me, and I will go ahead and send those over to you. Other than that, I think that's it for tonight. I hope you guys have a great night tonight, and I'll see you guys until next time. Peace out.